In our headlines on this Wednesday, March 26th, here in South Korea. Deadly wildfires continue to sweep across the southeastern part of the country, taking over a dozen lives and forcing thousands to flee as first responders struggle to contain the blaze. Meanwhile, on the local political front, opposition leader Lee Jae-myung is found not guilty by the Seoul High Court, reversing a previous conviction by a lower court on charges of violating the Public Official Election Act. Also, on the local front, the number of newborns rise for the 7th month in a row in January as a total of 23,947 babies are born, up over 11% on year, the highest annual growth since data collection began. Forest fires that began last week continue as high winds and dry conditions serve to fan the flames across the southeastern part of the country. Now, that being said, Uiseong-gun County appears to be bearing the brunt of the blazes. I have our Yuna standing by live with details. Yuna, welcome. Now, I understand you are at the county as we speak.
Yes, Sunny, I'm in Uiseong-gun County in Gyeongsang-buk-do Province, where the biggest wildfire began on Saturday. On the way from Seoul, I could already feel the severity of the wildfires, as with even over an hour left to go, the entire area was hazy from the smoke. To be more specific, I'm here at the temporary Uiseong Wildfire Command headquarters, which has been relocated to the county office due to the spreading fire. These tents are filled with coffee, food, and water to support evacuees, the teams of firefighters and volunteers.
I'm a university student living in Andong City, and seeing the severe loss of life and damage caused by the wildfire, I felt compelled to volunteer and contribute in any way I can. I sincerely hope the fire is brought under control as soon as possible.
The fire is spreading to neighboring cities and counties due to strong winds, and these maps show the areas where wildfires are currently raging across the country, including the counties of Yeongdeok, Yeongyang, Cheonan, and the neighboring city of Andong. Due to the wind, the wildfires are rapidly spreading to Andong City and Uiseong-gun County, leading to an evacuation order for nearby residents in a few areas of Yeongyang at around 11:30 a.m. As residents are fleeing from the chaos, multiple casualties have been reported, with a provisional estimate of at least 20 people dead and around 20 injured. According to the Central Disaster and Safety Countermeasure Headquarters, as of 9 a.m. this morning, the death toll from the wildfires has reached 14 in Gyeongsang-buk-do Province and 4 in Gyeongsangnam-do Province. The latest report reveals that an elderly man in his 80s was fully consumed by the fire, with bone fragments found at the scene. Authorities are currently searching for his wife. The areas most heavily affected are Uiseong-gun County and Andong City, where over 370 square kilometers have been affected. As of Wednesday, over 26,000 people are taking shelter in temporary facilities. Also, more than 200 structures, including homes, factories, and cultural heritage sites, have been damaged by the flames.
And Yuna, how have authorities been responding to these frightening flames?
Yes, Sunny, according to the government, over 100 helicopters are actively involved in the operation. But at around noon today, one firefighting helicopter crashed here at the scene of Uiseong-gun County, and the pilot was confirmed dead at the scene. Additionally, over 4,500 personnel are actively involved in the operation, including more than 1,000 military personnel and 3,000 firefighters.
The Central Disaster and Safety Countermeasure Headquarters, along with relevant ministries, local governments, public institutions, volunteers, and village leaders on the front lines, is fully mobilizing all efforts to combat the wildfire and protect residential areas.
As the fire continues to spread, there is heightened focus on safeguarding cultural heritage sites, particularly in Andong and the Hae village. Hae Village, a UNESCO World Heritage Site, is known for its well-preserved traditional architecture and cultural significance. A fire which started several kilometers from the village carried smoke towards the area, and by noon today, the smoke had thickened, heightening tension around the heritage site. According to reports, some tourists had visited the area until Tuesday, but on Wednesday, all access was completely restricted. This follows the complete destruction of the Gonsa Temple in Uiseong-gun County by the fire the day before. That's all I have for now, Sunny. Back to you.
All right, Annie, thank you for that report, and do take care. That was our Iani reporting live from Uiseong-gun County in Gyeongsang-buk-do province. Meanwhile, on the local political front, opposition leader Lee Jae-myung has won an appeal over an earlier conviction of election law violation by a lower court late last year. For details, our political correspondent Shin Ha-young joins me live. Ha-young, welcome. Let's start with details of the verdict by the Seoul High Court.
Sure, Sunny. The main opposition Democratic Party leader Lee Jae-myung has been acquitted by an appeals court with regard to election violation charges. The Seoul High Court today overturned a ruling by a lower court which handed Lee a suspended prison term. And Lee was indicted on charges of making false statements in December 2021 during a media interview where he denied knowing the late Kim Yuna, an executive involved in a development scandal in Seongnam City where Lee previously served as mayor. And he is also accused of having made false claims that there was pressure from South Korea's land ministry to rezone a research institute site in the Baekhyun-dong area. And the appellate court ruled on Wednesday that neither of the statements made by Lee can be seen as spreading false information, overturning the Seoul Central District Court's ruling in November. The lower court found Lee guilty of making false statements, though it said that parts of statements regarding Kim could not be considered a violation of the election law. And it handed Lee a 1-year prison sentence suspended for 2 years. And prosecutors demanded the Seoul High Court to give a 2-year prison term for Lee during the appellate trial, the same sentence as they demanded in the first trial.
Right. And hi, what has been Lee Jae-myung's response to this latest ruling?
Well, Sunny, right after the ruling, the opposition leader Lee Jae-myung thanked the court for delivering what he called a proper ruling. Take a listen.
I appreciate the court for delivering a proper ruling based on truth and justice, but it's frustrating that so much effort and national resources were spent on something so obvious.
Meanwhile, the ruling People Power Party expressed regret over court's ruling and said that it will wait for the Supreme Court's decision. And there is much speculation that prosecutors will appeal today's verdict at the Supreme Court. And now, if that happens and the Supreme Court overturns today's ruling, sentencing Lee to a fine of 1 million Korean won, which is about $680 or more, he would lose his legislative seat and be barred from running in elections for 5 years. And if sentenced to a prison term, the ban extends to 10 years. That's all I have for this hour. Back to you, Sunny.
All right, Ha-young, thank you for that coverage. That was our political correspondent Shin Ha-young with the latest on the opposition leader's legal battle. In other news, the number of newborns in January here in South Korea noted a remarkable rise on year as it surged over 11%. Our Park Cheonan has the latest findings.
As of January, the number of childbirths in South Korea has been on the rise for 7 consecutive months. According to Statistics Korea's data on Wednesday, the number of childbirths in January 2025 was 23,947. This number is 11.6% higher than the 21,461 births in January 2024. That's the biggest percentage increase since related data was first compiled. South Korea's total fertility rate, the average number of children a woman would have during her lifetime, also increased from January 2024's 0.8 children to this January's 0.88 children. The statistics show an increase in the total fertility rate for 25 to 29-year-olds, those in their 30s, and those aged 40 and over. The number of marriages in South Korea has been rising for the past 10 months, with the marriage rate increasing by over 10% compared to the year before for all those 10 months, except for June 2024 and January 2025. In January 2025, the number of marriages came to 20,153, 0.7% higher than that of January last year.
If you look at the marriage growth rate, it has been increasing since April 2024 until now. In January 2025, there was a 0.7% increase, so it looks like the growth rate has decreased a little bit. but it's actually due to the impact of 4 fewer reporting days because of the Seollal holiday in January 2025. If the number of reporting days hadn't decreased by 4, the marriage rate would have been in the 20% range, or at least in double-digit growth.
Even though there has been a recent increase in births and marriages, the declining population in aging society remain concerns for South Korea. As a result of 39,473 deaths in January 2025, the country saw a natural population decline of 15,526 people. Park Junan, Arirang News.
The South Korean Navy held a memorial service earlier on this Wednesday in honor of the sailors killed during the sinking of the Cheonan warship on March 26, 2010. The warship went down near the western northern limit line after being hit by a North Korean torpedo. Now, 46 South Korean sailors lost their lives. Some 200 people, including bereaved family members, were present at this year's memorial service in Pyeongtaek that marks the 15th anniversary of the tragic event. Meanwhile, U.S. intelligence authorities believe North Korea is most likely prepared to carry out a nuclear test on, quote, short notice. Our Lee Jae-myung has details.
North Korea may be ready to conduct a nuclear test on short notice. That's according to the Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, who made the remark while addressing Congress on the 2025 Annual Threat Assessment of the U.S. intelligence community. While assessing security challenges from China, Russia, Iran, North Korea, and others, she stressed that Pyongyang is likely prepared to conduct its 7th nuclear test. She added that the regime continues to flight test ICBMs to demonstrate their increasing capabilities as leverage in future negotiations. Her comments are in line with Seoul's assessment that the North has already completed preparations for another nuclear test. Pyongyang last conducted a nuclear test in 2017. The director also noted that the regime is looking to achieve at least tacit recognition as a nuclear power, as North Korean leader Kim Jong-un pursues stronger strategic and conventional capabilities that can target U.S. forces and allies in the region, as well as the U.S. homeland. She added that through such weapons, North Korea is looking to bolster its leverage and stature. Gabbard said those goals are being supported by a strategic partnership with Russia, which gives the regime greater financial, military, and diplomatic assistance. She also said the deployment of North Korean troops to the Kursk region is providing the regime with authentic war-fighting experience. Uiseong-gun, Arirang News.
And the UN Human Rights Council has adopted the final results of the 4th Universal Periodic Review on North Korea. At a meeting on Tuesday in Geneva, South Korea shared regret over North Korea's rejection of nearly half of the 294 recommendations for action against human rights violations. South Korea also called for the release of 3 detained missionaries as well as abductees and prisoners of war. It also shed grave light on the impact of North Korea's extreme militarization on human rights. Efforts to better accommodate adoptees from overseas seeking to trace their roots here in South Korea continue, with both the government and private entities offering their assistance. Our Peunji reports.
Kim Sperling was born in Seoul in 1975 and was sent to an adoption agency when he was a month old. He was then adopted in Germany when he was just 7 months.
In a way, I probably totally bought the whole adoption thing that the agency might try to sell to adoptive parents. If I had questioned that, there would have been no place where I could have found answers at that time. You know, in the 80s and the 90s, nobody knew anything about Korea.
He first returned to Korea at the age of 30, seeking to find his roots.
For me, it was about, okay, I gotta clear that relationship between me and Korea. I mean, it's there, and I cannot deny it.
That's when he also made efforts to find his biological parents.
Well, I started looking for them in 2006, so a few weeks later I got an email, and it's like, well, you know, we looked at the files and we contacted the hospital and they had another file and, oh yeah, we have a name of your mother. They had a name, I had a birth date, but the police wouldn't locate any person with a matching name and birth date.
He now lives in Korea with his wife and 2 children. He's also a photographer who has worked on projects that portray different stories about Korean adoptees who return to their country of birth. His works also include projects that relate to his Korean heritage, including Dokdo, as well as Korean nurses and miners who were sent to Germany in the mid-1900s.
I'd say I am Korean, I am German, and you know, it's like the way my Koreanness is something that, like, my Korean identity, like my consciousness is like still evolving. It's like I'm learning every day.
Sterling was just one of many Korean children who were sent abroad for adoption. Since 1953, after the country was ravaged by the Korean War, around 200,000 Korean babies are known to have been sent to other countries. Louise Lindberg was adopted in Sweden when she was 12. After working as a social worker in Sweden for 18 years, she decided to return to the country where she was born. She now helps overseas Korean adoptees reconnect with their heritage at a non-profit organization and explains many of those who return have said they feel safe and comfortable.
And just like things like, hey, people just like look like me. And they feel really comfortable because I ask, why did you come? What is the best thing with being in Korea? And they say like, everybody just look like me and I can just feel safe.
The South Korean government is also making efforts to help these Korean adoptees who grew up overseas. The Overseas Korean Agency newly opened a service counter in Central Seoul, aimed at providing a one-stop service that will not only provide interpretation services, but also help them find their birth parents.
One example of the services that this counter could provide is finding parents using DNA matches or providing adoption information.
As the country continues to acknowledge its past on adoption, the government is now hoping to provide full support to make up for decades of lost time. 배은지, Arirang News.
Meanwhile, at the Suwon World Cup Stadium on Tuesday night, Team Korea's World Cup qualifier match against Jordan ended in a draw. Playing at a sold-out stadium on home ground, Korea got on the scoreboard early thanks to a goal by midfielder Lee Jae-myung 5 minutes into the game. However, Jordan came back with an equalizer in the 30th minute. This latest draw means the Taeguk Warriors will have to wait to secure automatic qualification from Group B, which they top with 16 points. South Korea has seen an outstanding start in the sport of skating this year with gold medals from 2 major international events. That being said, our An Sung-jin had the pleasure of meeting with the country's future stars. Do take a look.
Practice makes perfect, and you need to be perfect when you're going head-to-head with your twin.
I started skating because I just love being on the ice rink. My role model is Kim Yuna. I look up to her because there's no figure skater better than her, and she's so well-rounded.
The 17-year-old identical twins are both representing the country.
I like how Uiseong and I can help each other's techniques, and having her helps me feel less nervous during competitions.
South Korea is known for its strength on the ice rink. In the most recent Winter Asian Games, the country won gold medals in figure skating thanks to leading athletes such as rising star Kim Cheonan. Many aspiring young figure skaters like the Kim sisters dream of reaching the top and bringing more winter sports success to Korea. However, this success doesn't come easy. It's built on the back of a grueling schedule made harder by the ice skating environment in the country.
Korea has comparatively fewer ice rinks, which makes it difficult for athletes to practice. It also means that these figure skaters have to either practice early in the morning or late at night. So it would be nice if the government supported in fostering these figure skaters.
The Korea Skating Union says it runs several programs to support these figure skaters.
We try to provide a systematic training structure to promote continuous growth for these athletes, including a culture and arts education program that can further develop their artistic capabilities.
Figure skating is a sport that combines technique and art. Despite hardships, these players demonstrate a delicate beauty and grace, with hopes to become the next leading athlete. An Song-jin, Arirang News.
This is The World Now, bringing you the latest stories from around the globe. Starting with updates on Ukraine and Russia. Although there was no joint statement following the extended talks between the U.S. and Russia in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia on Monday, the two agreed on a few key points, including reducing hostilities between Russia and Ukraine in the Black Sea and banning strikes on energy facilities. The proposed agreement announced on Tuesday focuses on the Black Sea, aiming to ensure safe navigation, eliminate the use of force, and prevent the militarization of commercial vessels in the region. However, the Kremlin has stipulated that its commitment to the ceasefire is contingent upon the lifting of specific Western sanctions affecting its food and fertilizer exports. Russia and the United States have agreed to implement measures to stop attacks on Russian and Ukrainian energy facilities for 30 days. Despite extensive negotiations and expectations, no joint statement has been issued. Israel's parliament has approved the 2025 state budget, a move that solidifies Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's coalition government. The passage of the budget has led to heated protests. On Tuesday, the Israeli parliament, the Knesset, passed the state budget for 2025 with a vote of 66 to 52. This narrowly met the March 31st deadline, avoiding potential snap elections. However, the budget's passage was met with public dissent. Families of hostages held in Gaza protested outside the parliamentary chamber, displaying photos and signs referencing the hostages captured during a Hamas attack in October 2023. Meanwhile, the Israeli finance minister referred to the budget as a budget of war, emphasizing its focus on national security amid resumed military actions against Hamas in Gaza. Brazil's Supreme Court concluded the first day of proceedings on Tuesday to determine whether former President Jair Bolsonaro and several associates will stand trial on charges including attempting to stage a coup. The session ended without a decision and deliberations are set to continue. Bolsonaro has been accused of orchestrating a plan to remain in power after his defeat in the 2022 election. Allegations against the former leader include plotting to poison his successor, President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva, and assassinate a Supreme Court justice. Bolsonaro denies the charges, claiming political persecution. Finally, in the UK, 5 neglected lions rescued from war-torn Ukraine have found a new home at the Big Cat Sanctuary in Smarton, Kent. The group includes a male African lion named Rory and lionesses Amani, Lyra, Vanda, and Yuna. Their rescue journey was facilitated by the Wild Animals Rescue Center in Ukraine. After being temporarily cared for in Belgium, the lions arrived at the Lion Rescue Center, a sanctuary established through a fundraising campaign and officially opened on Tuesday. Choi Ji-hee, Arirang News.
Currently, the highest level of wildfire crisis warning, severe level, is in effect across the country, with dry weather warnings mainly in Gyeongsang-buk-do province and dry weather advisories in the eastern parts of the country, inland areas, and Jeju Island. Please take extra precautions not to start any fires. We have been waiting for the rain in this dry weather. Starting with Jeju Island from late afternoon, it will expand to the south coast tonight and most parts of the country tomorrow. However, the amount of rain will not be as much as expected. There's just 5 to 30 millimeters forecast for Jeju Island, 5 to 20 millimeters on the west and south coast, and 5 millimeters in some parts of Gyeongsang-buk-do province where wildfires are still burning. Tomorrow morning will start mild with rain in most parts of the country. Highs will move up to 19 degrees Celsius in Seoul and Daejeon, 18 degrees in Gwangju and Busan. Temperatures are expected to drop after the rain stops tomorrow. That's all for Korea. Here are the weather conditions around the world.
those are the headlines at this hour here in South Korea. Coming up right after this break is our daily panel session. Thank you for now.